Hi, welcome to the channel. This is Beyond Authentic, where we go beyond the mundane to tell you all about authentic witchcraft. My name is Lisa, and in today's Witchy Wednesday video, I'm going to talk to you all about the moon, the various cycles of the moon, the phases of the moon, what you can do on a full moon and on the eclipses. But it's a bit late for it, isn't it? Because wasn't the full moon yesterday? Technically, no. But it's a bit late, isn't it? Because wasn't the full moon last night? Stay tuned to find out more. Right then, my wonderful weedlings, before we get into it, let me know all the things that you think you know about the moon. Put them down into the chat. That'll be really interesting. I bet we're going to see it's made of cheese, because that's definitely true, because we know Wallace and Gromit went there, didn't we? Neil Armstrong didn't play golf on there because that was all faked. What else? What else do we know about the moon? Wow, let's get down to it, shall we? So there are basically 4 phases of the moon. So when you look at the moon from the Earth, we only ever see a portion of it anyway because of the geosynchronous orbit that it goes around the Earth in. But there are basically 3 or 4, depending on who you are and what practice you believe, phases of the moon that we use in witchcraft. So there is the waxing moon. Now this is when the moon is going from its dark phase into its growth period, so right up to the full moon. Then there's the full moon itself, and then there's the waxing moon, which is the period after the full moon. But then there's also the dark moon. Now a lot of people just look on this on the 3 elements. Now partly that's because of the triple moon goddess symbology, you know, sort of my tattoo and things, the candle holder just there, all of that. So it's very much seen as being kind of a new moon, a full moon, a waning moon. However, technically, in the same way the full moon lasts for 3 days, the new moon also lasts for 3 days. So if you think about a 28-day calendar, directly opposite, so halfway through, literally polar opposite to the full moon, is the dark moon. And that is basically the 3-day period where you can't see the moon at all. Now, a lot of practitioners don't work with that energy. A lot of people just kind of don't even accept it as being a phase of the moon. But for me personally, it absolutely is. If we're going to accept the full moon as a phase of the moon, then we have to accept the new moon as well, or the dark moon, I should say. If you've been aware of anything, you'll be aware that the press have run with this idea that today is a full moon, it's a super moon, it's a blood moon, and it's a lunar eclipse, and all of those things have everybody going, oh my god, oh my god. As I'm filming this, the lunar eclipse hasn't actually happened yet. It's about to happen in a few hours time, so about 4 o'clock on Wednesday morning. So as you're watching this, it would have already happened. Now you might be thinking, oh thanks Lisa, I really could have done with that, but there's a reason why I've scheduled the videos this way around. So there was an extra video yesterday, and then this video today as you're watching it. There's a reason that we've done that. Now the main reason I've done it is because the lunar eclipse creates very, very, very chaotic energy, and what I didn't want anybody to do was to do any of the things that I'm going to be doing in this video on the day of the lunar eclipse, because it's an unstable energy. It's just not a great thing to do a lot of workings around. But all the things I'm going to show you today, you'll still be able to do tonight, because what a lot of people don't realize is that the full moon actually, so this week the full moon goes, or this month rather, the full moon goes from Monday evening into Tuesday evening into Wednesday when it's at its zenith, when it's at its peak, and then Wednesday evening into Thursday. So the fact that we've got the lunar eclipse right when the full moon is at its most, that's a bit of a chaotic time. Now again, a lot of practitioners don't use the lunar eclipses. They don't work on those periods. However, a lot of people don't even acknowledge them if we can't see them. So this again comes down to sort of that sort of historic elements of witchcraft, which for me, I really enjoy. So basically in the UK, a couple of 100 years ago, nobody would have known that at 4 o'clock in the morning over in America there was a lunar eclipse happening. We wouldn't have known about it as much. We wouldn't have been able to see it, therefore it wouldn't have affected us as much. We might still have felt kind of a bit of a weird energy on the full moon. And so for me personally, I choose to only kind of acknowledge the eclipses that I can personally see and experience. Now that doesn't mean I'm not aware of them. It doesn't mean that I'm not aware of the differences in the energies. It just means that I choose not to do any particular eclipse practices unless there's one that I can actually be involved in, because it just seems a bit pointless. It's a bit like that argument that it's always 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, so therefore let's have Pims or whatever it is that people used to drink. So then, 3 days for the full moon. What about the dark moon? So it's opposite. That also has 3 days. Again, the day before the dark moon, the day of the dark moon, and the day after the dark moon. Now, a lot of practitioners who follow the lunar cycle, they won't do magical practice on these 3 days because it is kind of almost like a reset period. So they might, instead of doing like workings and spell work and doing all sort of rituals, they might actually take those days to take stock. So they might use those days to update their journals, to kind of catalogue their herbs and work out what they still need to get, kind of do a bit of an inventory, whether that's a spiritual inventory, so where you look within and you kind of do a bit of shadow work, or whether that is kind of an inventory of what you've got in your magical cabinet, your store cabinet, what you need to get, all of those things. It is the last day of the full moon. I really love the fact that it's a 3-day full moon. I love that because I normally feel the full moon energies before I even look up in the sky and realise when it is. I'm kind of almost like a lazy lunar practitioner. So I don't really do a lot on the dark moon, might do a little bit of shadow work, but I do like to work on the full moon. I don't do a full SBAT. So if you don't know the word SBAT, I'll put a definition just here somewhere on screen. An SBAT is basically the full moon workings that a coven might do. So quite often covens will get together on the Sabbat. So we've got summer solstice coming up. We've just had Beltane. I'll link a video up here to the Beltane video that I did. There will be one coming up for Letha, which is summer solstice. So you do those kind of festival days, but a lot of covens will also get together on the SBATs, which is the full moons. Sometimes those will correspond with the Sabbats, sometimes they won't. Most of the time they won't. It's very rare that they kind of collide on the same day. I will go on to in a few minutes about the full moon workings, but before we do, let's look at the other phases as well, shall we? So a waxing moon. What is a waxing moon? What is it for? How do you kind of do workings on it? How do you use that if you want to use lunar cycles? So basically a waxing moon is a good time to do any ritual, any spell work, any working that is designed to increase something. So it's a fabulous time to do abundance spells. It's a really good time to do fertility. It's a really good time to do sort of career-based spells or workings. It's a really good time to work with healing in terms of increasing health. So anything that you want to do, you can kind of put in those terms as long as it is increasing something. So it might be that you need to increase your libido. It might be that you want to increase your bank balance. It might be that you want to increase, I don't know, your exercise levels and kind of how fit you are, your stamina, things like that. So that's the 11-day period where you can do the spells to promote things, to gain things, to kind of, for things to grow. When we get to the full moon, there's some more rituals, which I'll go into in a second. And then we go into the waning moon. So that waning period of the moon, from kind of the full moon down to the dark moon, that period is all about diminishing, decreasing. So that's why it's called waning. So basically that is where, if you want to do workings for diets, or if you want to do a working on banishing somebody, you can do health workings, but you would have to phrase it in a particular way. So in the waxing moon, you might be doing a working saying, I am healthy, I am, you know, clear of illness. In the waning moon, you might be saying, you know, the effects of COVID are leaving me, or, you know, my allergies are minimized, the effects of my allergies are minimized at this time. So basically it's still kind of the same working, it's just looking at it from a different perspective. So it's reframing that perspective. So positive on the waxing and negative on the waning. So it's just like flipping the narrative on those. So then the two bits I've missed out. The dark moon, as I said, that's really good for doing shadow work and for looking inward, for taking that pause, or for not working at all if that's your choice. And then the full moon itself, what is that good for? The full moon is an amazing period of charging. So if you want to charge your crystals, if you want to charge your water, your herbs for future workings, that's phenomenal for that. It's a very good time to do protection workings. It's a very good time to do sort of anything that you need power or strength. Those 3 days are normally very good to do that, unless there is an eclipse during the full moon, because at that point the energies are all over the place. The moon strength is at its peak, but then you've also got the elements coming in where that energy is being blocked. So personally, when there is a lunar eclipse, that's when I just, nope, not doing anything, not preparing anything, not working on anything, not doing anything magical. I'll do some mundane stuff. So I might do some paperwork, or I might do, you know, design something, but very much not magical working. As you're watching this Wednesday evening, later on tonight, there are some workings that you can do during that last day of the full moon. Okay, so you haven't lost it because of the eclipse. It's not that you write off the entire full moon. You do it on day 1 and day 3, and in the middle you just kind of give it a rest. So what are we going to do tonight, or what would I recommend that you do tonight? Right then, so for me it was yesterday, for you it was Monday. Anyway, it's confusing. Day 1 of the full moon, I actually did a full moon water. So this is some moon water. Basically what you do is you take your jar, you fill it with water. Ideally it's filtered water. You can use bottled water, mineral water, things like that. That's great. That's what this is. You can use tap water if you need be, but just be aware of some of the impurities in that. But then you take this out and you literally put this out into your garden or on a windowsill somewhere where it's going to get full moon light hitting it. If you haven't got a garden, or you haven't got a windowsill that gets that full moon light, or if you're in the broom closet, you might just want to put this on a windowsill near to where the full moon is, or just kind of put it somewhere where it's going to be safe. The water doesn't really care that it's not getting full moonlight. It's ideal if it can, because there's something to be said about that moonlight hitting it. But to be honest with you, it's the energies of the moon that we are using. The fact that the light might hit it is just an added bonus. So even if this is just in your bedroom, it should still have that same effect, because we're trying to capture the energy of the moon. Now, why do we use water? Because obviously the moon is linked in with tidal forces. So the moon is also representative of water energy, of the elements. It's representative of the chalice. With the tarot deck, it's the cups. It's representative of the moon. So all of those things, water, emotions, all of those things that are interlinked, this will link into as well. So even if it is just in a little thimble-sized jar under your bed, and that's kind of what you are doing, your intent of capturing that full moon water is enough. So what do you do with full moon water then? So this now is an energized water, so you can drink it. Okay, so absolutely you can drink it. I've got another jug here which has got some, yeah, it's slightly warm now, warm water that you can use to make a tea. You can just absolutely drink it and imbibe it. But if you are putting anything into it, make sure that if you're putting this outside, it's got the lid on, obviously, but also make sure that if you're putting any crystals anywhere near it, don't put crystals in your water, because a lot of them will leak sort of heavy metals and other substances. You might not be aware of that, and then slowly over time you're ingesting poison. So just don't do that. I could give you a list. There are a whole list of what crystals it's safe and what ones it's not to, but the best advice is just don't put crystals in your water. Even some of them will actually like deteriorate, so yeah, don't do that. But anyway, so you've got your moon water, so you can use it obviously to represent the element of water on your altar. So you can just bung this on your altar. It's very good to represent the goddess, the moon, water, all of those things. You can use it as a libation, so you can actually pour a little bit of this out and use it in place of, a lot of people in their workings will use alcohol, so they'll have some wine or they'll have some mead or something like that. Moon water is very good to pour out, to leave in a little offering bowl for the goddess. So that's something that, you know, I know a lot of people do. I've got a list over here, by the way. You can use it to anoint. So if you're doing a candle working, instead of anointing your candle with oil, you can dip your finger in some of that and just rub that up and down the candle and anoint it that way. And again, you're bringing that lunar energy into that candle working. So that's a really good way of doing it. You can also use it. I know I said that you can't use it to, or I wouldn't ever put my crystals into the moon water, but what you could do is to hold your moon water, your crystal in your hand, and pour the moon water over it to actually cleanse your crystals with that running energy of the moon water. So that's a very good one to do. So that again will cleanse, it will help to charge those crystals just by using that as a kind of as a wash. There's a lot of other things you can do as well. You can use it to create a bun. So there's lots of other things you can do with it as well. Basically anything you would use water for, you can use this, but anything you can add into water. So how about using a bit of rice paper? You know, the rice paper that you can eat, it dissolves in water, right? So why not write a working on your rice paper? Write down your written spell, write down your calling, write down your affirmation, or whatever it is you're doing, and instead of burning it, you can actually destroy that with moon water. See, you see, there are always ways around things. So if you've got a working that's basically saying, write this down on a piece of paper and burn it, if you live somewhere where the instant you light a match, you're going to set the alarms off, or you live somewhere where you're not allowed to burn anything because of who you live with, or in my case, you know, obviously Rufus is quite poorly at the moment with his lungs. The last thing we want to do is get smoke in the environment. So basically what you can do instead is to use that rice paper, wet it and destroy it. At a push, you can just flush it down the loo, but why not use that moon water? Why not infuse that added power of the moon into the working of doing it that way? There's also one other way, and I have talked about this briefly before on my channel, and that is to use a purification water. So you use your moon water as a purification water instead of a smudging. Just a quick interjection: if you are going to use sage for smudging, like sage bundles, smudge sticks, things like that, do please be careful, because sage is very good at cleansing. It's very good, which is kind of the problem, because sage is very good at cleansing. So it doesn't just cleanse the negative energy, it will also clear any positive energy you've got in that space as well. So it's a bit like taking full strength antibiotics. Yes, it will clear all of the bad bacteria in your stomach, but it will also kill off all the good bacteria as well. And sage is very much like that. It's basically a powerful cleansing agent. Now, it might be when you first move into an area that you need that kind of oomph, you need that power. But chances are, day to day, every month, you don't need to do a full, complete detox cleanse like that. So what I would recommend is, if you are going to use sage in sort of smoke incense cleansers, is to basically use the dried herbs along with some other herb blends and use it on a charcoal disc, obviously in a heat-proof container. And then if you need to kind of waft it, either carry it with you or use the feather sort of technique and waft the smoke around into all the corners, because that way sage is one of the ingredients. It isn't the only ingredient, and you are then still protecting some of those other workings you might have, some of those other protections, or anything that is waiting positive, like coming your way, anything that's just there, just over the horizon, just out of sight, that might be coming your way, and then you smudge everything and all of that is taken away. So do please just bear that in mind. Okay then, so this is the DIY portion of the day. So this is my little bowl that I've got. It's actually a little offering bowl that I've done with just a sticker of the goddess on, so it is now designated for that purpose. This is my warm water, and that there is the cool water that's been in the fridge. So then, taking the water, as you can see, there's just enough in there for what I need to do. And I'm going to add in, the first thing I'm going to add in is some sea salt. So this is some sea salt flakes. I really like using this in workings. Salt is a very good one for any protection, purifying, anything like that. Salt is phenomenal. I like this particular type of salt, basically because it feels really natural. It's crunchy and kind of just feels a bit less processed. I mean, if you've just got table salt, just use table salt. I've been known to do workings using the salt sachets you get in a McDonald's takeaway restaurant. So, you know, at the end of the day, salt is salt. So there you go, the salt has just gone in there, and this is why you want the water to be kind of tepid, so just to help it dissolve. I don't know whether you can see there. Oops, there you go, I'm spilling it everywhere. Now, as you can see, I'm just using my finger to mix it round. You can use your wand, you can use an athame, you can use a spoon, you can use anything like that. You don't have to be too sort of precious on it. So then we've now got our salt, which is our base protection layer in the spray. Now obviously that should quite happily dissolve. So next up is herbs. Now if you aren't worried about blocking a nozzle, if you're just going to put this into a bottle and maybe drip it or sort of splash it around a little bit, then that's absolutely fine. But because I want to use this in a spray bottle, I need to keep the nozzle clear. So what I'm going to do is pop my herbs into one of these little organza bags. Now this one actually came in the Witch Casket subscription box that I got this month. So I'm really happy to have these because I reuse these all the time for things like this. So then if you haven't seen that video, we'll put the link to it just up here in the corner, by the way. So what am I going to put into the bag? Well, I've got all my herbs just sat here. So I will be using some mugwort. Now I love mugwort. I think it is an amazing herb for so many different things, but certainly for protection, for purification, I think it is absolutely amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and take a good sized pinch. There's probably a good teaspoon there. So a good sized pinch, there you go, look into the bottom of the bag. Then I'm going to be using some rosemary. This is actually a really nice Spanish rosemary that I found that I absolutely adore. It smells amazing. So again, if you haven't got dried herbs, you can use the sort of fresh ones if you happen to be growing those. So next up for me is some Valerian. I really like using this. It's very good for purification and for protection. So again, I'm not going to use too much, probably just a good sized pinch. So nowhere near as much as the mugwort and the rosemary. And in fact, I will put a little bit more in just because of what we want it to do. And because I know it's not going to steep for that long. So there we go. Now you can also add some basil into this, some peppermint, but I actually quite like that, especially for the amount that we're doing. I quite like that as it is. So I'm just going to put that herb back away into I've got a little mix herb jar which has got all sorts of different little mixes of herbs in. Now this is where you can add in some oils. Now I like to use some lavender oil. Now obviously because of Rufus's sort of breathing issues, I'm not going to go too bonkers with this, but I'm just going to put a single drop, there we go, one single drop of lavender, just putting it straight into the water. You can obviously put it in with this bag as well if you want. I'm also going to use a single drop of frankincense. So again, if you haven't got these oils, don't worry about it. There will be a whole video coming up at some point on this channel about aromatherapy oils and what you can do with them and their magical uses. And then this one is some peppermint. So again, if you haven't got this oil, you can just use a little bit of a peppermint tea bag. There's a little hack for you, a little hack. If you ever want some peppermint, some dried peppermint, so there we go, one drop there. You can just add that in instead of some of the oils. Now I would use my fingers to mix the oils, but I don't want to get them everywhere, so I'm just going to use a little twig from something that I have been working on behind the scenes and just give that a good old stir. Now obviously whilst I've been filming, the water has cooled down a bit, but I'm not really too worried about that. And then I'm basically using this as a tea bag. Now I'm just going to leave that in there for a few minutes just to kind of infuse, and I will come back to you shortly. By the power of editing, it's now been about half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that, since we left this little kind of herbal tea baggy thing in the water. I think it's steeping, I think that's the word, but it is now, the water is now pretty cold, to be fair, and this is now kind of ready to come out. So just because I know how much mess I normally make, I have got a couple of things just to make sure that I don't spill this everywhere. So I'm just going to pop this on there. It's just a little, it's actually the lid of a pot that I use to store my makeup brushes. But anyway, I've got my little spray bottle. Now this has come from one of the beauty boxes. This actually was a conditioning spray for your hair, but I've used it all up and rewashed it, and I've actually repurposed this a couple of times for different sprays. I really like it because it's got a good sprayer. I did get from my empties box a Makeup Revolution primer spray. But you can see I'll try to be clever because I thought, oh, it's black. I thought if I take the label off, I could just write a really nice, put a gold star on it, or one of my goddess stickers like I've got there, put that on it. It will look absolutely amazing. No. And I tried picking it off in the gap, but I wasn't going to sit and faff around. I just couldn't be bothered. So I might have to stick that in some hot water and let that do the job for me in a little bit. But anyway, this is more than enough. This is absolutely fine. So I've also got one of these. Now this is there we go, it's a little fold out funnel. Now I think this came from Poundland. I don't even remember what it's for. I think it might be from the camping section, but when we saw it, it was one of those things I was like, this will be ideal because you can kind of, maybe not quite as ideal as I thought because it's a little bit too big, but it should sit quite happily just on top and just help get most of the water into the bottle. Right then, so just, oh, you can see, I don't know whether you can see. Oh, you can. Look at that. Look at the colour that's come out of those herbs. I don't know whether that's from a bit of dye from the bag maybe, or from the herbs themselves. I don't know, but that looks quite a nice, like a weak, very, very weak tea, doesn't it? So then all I'm doing is going to pour that mostly into the bottle. I did get a little bit of it all over my cloth, but never mind. There we go. Just see whether I can just tip that excess there. Little bit, there we go, and then you just put the lid on, and that's all there is to it. It's really, really simple to make. Now obviously I've only used one drop of those oils. You can use more if you want to kind of ramp them up a little bit to create more of a sort of an effect, to have more purification effect. Personally, I know that this will do the job. You just kind of have to go around a couple of times. I'm fine with that. For not triggering Rufus's breathing, I'm absolutely fine with that. I've shown you how to make it, but of course the next question is, how do you use it? So basically what I would do with this is I would use it in conjunction with some special words. So effectively a spell. I know, right? But I would do a working. Personally, I would go into each room, spray around the doorway, maybe one spray, maybe two, go into each room and just spray into the center of the room and around any window. So maybe one in the center, one on the window, one on the doorway, maybe in the corners as well, depending on how I felt the energy was blocked. As I'm going around the room, I would call upon a deity, because I work with deities. You don't have to, but I would call upon a deity, and I would probably call upon Gaia, because she's actually, for me, the deity that is all about kind of universal energy, loving, nurturing, kind of that really nice protective, and where you feel safe and snug. So that kind of works really well for me. But because she's an earth mother, what do we not do? We don't mess with a mother with her kids, do we? We just don't, because you don't want to annoy that fierce lioness. And Gaia has basically got that sort of energy about her. She is very loving, very nurturing. Don't mess with her kids, basically. So as I'm going around the room, I would say something like, I call upon the force of Gaia, earth and air, water, fire, protect me and purify my space, send all negativity to another place. Something like that. I like rhyming couplets. I know I'm sad, but I do. So I'd be saying something like that as I'm going around the room. So then when I'm finished doing my purifying, I've sprayed every room, I've gone into the corners where it feels like I need to, I've sprayed all the windows and all the doors. What I personally would then do is to offer a little bit of a libation to Gaia as a thank you. So whether that is a little bit of this poured out, probably what I would do is take some of the moon water that I've been using and water a plant with it. So again, you're giving the moon water straight back to that earth mother, straight back into that sort of earth energies as you finish working. So as she's come in and helped you out, you've then gone and helped her out by watering some of her children. That's how I view it. So there you go. That is me giving you the full kind of structure of how I would do a working with the deity that I would work with, and the libation method afterwards. So that's pretty much what I do for a lot of my workings. The deities change, the libations change, the callings change, and the prayers, or this sort of working itself, changes. But that's pretty much the structure. You know, I'm probably going to get some flack and some ridicule for this video because I'm talking about the goddess and I'm such a hippie and all of that crap. I don't even care, because I'm really enjoying this series here on the channel. I'm really enjoying sharing this part of myself with you, and hopefully teaching you a little bit more about authentic witchcraft as we go. So then, if you are enjoying it, please do give me a thumbs up. I know I've had some amazing comments down in the comment section, and from what you've all said, you are really enjoying this so far. So stick with it. I've got lots and lots and lots of videos planned, and lots more fascinating things coming your way in the weeks and months to come. It's going to get very, very exciting, I can assure you. If you have liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out. And do the YouTubey things, the subscribey thing, the bell icon, all of that. That really helps me out as well. Also, do just double check. If you think you've subscribed to me, just double check and make sure that you have, because YouTube is being really helpful to small channels at the moment by helpfully unsubscribing people. It's also removing that bell icon. So I've had a few people message me to say that videos that have gone up a couple of days beforehand haven't been shown to people, and it's only when they've gone, where's Lisa's Wednesday video? Hang on, that they've actually gone back and found it. So yeah, do please make sure that your bell icon is ticked if you want to get notifications each and every time I do upload a video. But that is it for me. I'll be back next week with another Witchy Wednesday DIY special. In fact, we're going to be making something that has been in shot in this video all along. But if you want to know what that is, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I will see you next week. And as we always say, stay you, stay weird, stay authentic, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.